Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again from Film Fanatic headquarters. This is another video. This has been a fun journey because all of these videos that I've been doing lately have been focused on all of the videos that I just recently purchased at Opera House Video. The great and beloved, kind of the last man standing as far as video rental places here in Maine. I'm not sure of other places that, or I'm not sure of any other places that exist, any other shops that exist in Maine that rent videos. It's pretty wild. I think somebody had told me that there is a place that's somewhere, I think maybe in Waldoboro, Maine, or like on the outskirts. That's kind of a general store, but they actually rent movies there. But it's technically not a video rental place like say Opera House Video, or where it's just basically an old school rental place where you go in. It's a mom and pop shop essentially. It's been around for like years and years and years, and you just go in and rent movies. Blu-rays, DVDs. You have your new movies that come out, new releases, and then you have your uh, the classics and all those kinds of things. You have all the different genres. So I don't think that kind of a thing or that model exists anywhere else but in Belfast. And I just saw this morning that there was the one of the local channels. I think it was NBC or CBS, or one of their affiliates, I should say. A local news show went in and did an interview with Dennis Howard and Opera House Video, and it's pretty cool. I watched it this morning. So it's amazing. They're still doing it, and they had, like I said, they had an amazing sale yesterday, last week. It was actually exactly a week ago, and I went there and I bought a whole shit ton of movies. Super cool. And so all of these videos that I've been doing since then have been really focused on all of these movies that I bought. I've been throwing in a few other things just because I have a ton of movies to get through, and it's been a super fun ride. A lot of the movies, most of the movies that I've been watching, I have never seen before. And it's funny because right before I went to Opera House Video, I had made another big haul. I got a giant haul of other movies. So it's been a whirlwind of all of these new movies that I've been watching. I typically watch movies at night anyway, or even if I come home late. I had a gig last night, and I came home. I got home. It was close. It was at Marshall Wharf, and it was a super fun gig. And I got home, a little bit later than I thought, but we got done about 10, and I got home about 11, 11:30. And by the time I got settled in, it was like close to midnight. But I ended up watching a movie. It's typically something, and it's so like on a night that I don't have anything going on, and I'm just maybe just chilling out. If I've had a rehearsal, or maybe I just have the night off, I will usually always fire up a movie to kind of chill out and unwind at the end of the day. And even when I come home late, I'll throw in a movie, and even if I don't make it all the way through, sometimes I'll start, you know, um, a brand new one, but I generally, will watch something and definitely dig it. It's a good way for me to just kind of decompress and chill out before I eventually hit the sack. Before I went to Opera House last Saturday, which was a week ago already, I had gone to Bull Moose, my favorite place on earth, and made a bunch of purchases. Got a bunch of super sweet Blu-ray movies. Got a stack of these great exploitation movies. There's uh, there's one movie I haven't done, and there's one film I haven't watched yet that I am very very excited about watching. I might watch that tonight, but we'll see what happens. There's so many movies I want to get to, and a lot of diverse movies. But again, that's the place where I go to buy all my exploitation movies. There's one movie I did get that I didn't watch yet, and I've done a few, I think 3 or 4 shows about those movies that I bought, and that was an awesome, awesome haul. This movie here, The Strange Vice of Miss Warda, which is a giallo, an Italian giallo, wicked old school, from the 70s, I believe. I haven't watched this yet, but this looks incredible. And so stay tuned. I'm going to eventually do a show with that. And so then a few days after, I think a couple of days or so after, or no, actually, no, actually, I think it was before I went to Bull Moose. I had gone to Rockland, the Rockland Goodwill, which is an awesome place for movies. I highly recommend if you want a pretty good selection of movies. They have a really good selection of Blu-rays. I've gotten some really good ones. They overall have a really good selection. Sometimes, depending on when you go, like anything, it can be really big, a big selection, or sometimes it can be kind of on the small side. But I usually always get something really good. And there's been times where I've gotten some really good ones. And I bought a whole bunch of movies there one time around that week, and so I did, and I scored on all of these. I got a horror pack DVD with a bunch of different movies, had 10 or 11 movies on it, and then I got some exploitation movies. There were also some really old school horror exploitation movies on that set. I did a whole show on that, on all of those videos, so that was great. And then this sale came up at Opera House Video, and it was a last minute thing. I happened to see it posted the night before the sale was happening, and was on Facebook, and I was just like, yes. So I made myself a note to as to when it was starting, and so I got there super early. I got there. It started at 11:30, and it went till about 4:30. And I got there at a quarter after 11, and there was somebody actually in line before me. But I scored on a shit ton of movies, and so lately I have been, every night since then, I've been watching one of these movies and doing reviews on them. So it's been super, super awesome, and most of them have been movies I haven't seen. This movie is the exception, but since it's such a classic, and, I kind of think it might be, arguably, or pretty much. I mean, there's obviously some I haven't seen before, but I kind of feel like it's probably my favorite zombie movie. Um, and it's a close tie with another film that I'll mention, and that is George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. They had this special edition on DVD that looked really cool. Um, and I snagged it up. Of course, I've seen this movie a bazillion times. I even think I did a show. I rented this actually a different version of this. I rented this at Opera House. I don't own it, unfortunately. I have the remake of Dawn of the Dead by Zack Snyder, which is pretty good. I like that movie quite a bit, and it's funny because I grew up. This was one of the movies I used to watch all the time as a kid. This has always been one of my favorite zombie movies. Huge fan of George Romero, the legendary director. Of course, Night of the Living Dead, and a whole bunch of other classic zombie movies and horror movies. One of the greatest, one of the most iconic figures in the world of horror. So, again, this was one of those movies I grew up watching, and I loved it. Always loved it. And then I remember quite a few years ago, Zack Snyder, who's a director who I think is good, but he has a really big inconsistency, I think, in his career. And again, these are just my opinions, and it is what it is. But I feel like a lot of the times he's all over the place, and I feel like at times it's a thing with style over substance, where he obviously has a very intense visual style and kind of an aesthetic. And there's been a lot of times with his movies that I have felt that it's it's over it's overcompensated for there being a really good story, or actually being or where there's a movie or a film of his that has great characters, great character development, a great story. And I feel a lot of the times that isn't the case, so it's overcompensated with just so much CGI. But there are some movies of his that I like, and one or two that I really really like. But a lot of them I don't really like. But I like the remake that he made of Dawn of the Dead. I always thought that was a really cool movie. I own that on Blu-ray. I've never done a show on that one yet, but it's funny because I've seen that. I hadn't seen this movie in quite a few years. And again, this was a movie, this was a staple of my childhood, as well as all the other zombie movies that were coming out and horror movies in the 80s and 70s. And so, fast forward quite a few years, I had not watched this in quite a while, and I knew that there was this remake coming out of it, and Zack Snyder had directed it. And it was the first movie I had come across Zack Snyder as a director. So I like that movie quite a bit. I do own it on Blu-ray. I've seen it quite a few times. I do really like that movie quite a bit. And then it's funny because last year I hadn't seen this in a super long time. And I was at Opera House Video and I rented it, and it was a different version. This is a little bit of a different. I mean, it's a different package. It's the same movie, but the packaging is different. But their in-house copy, I remember renting, that has the regular standard copy. This is like the Italian version, and I'll go into that in a minute because there's a little bit of a difference. And it's funny. I rented not that long ago. I rented. It was sometime over the winter time. I rented the original George Romero movie, and I for some reason had forgotten how amazing that movie is, and just how suspenseful it is, and it just from the opening frame to the very end, it's one of those movies that just grabs you by the seat of your pants, and you're just in it to win it, and it's super gory. It's brutal. It's super fun. It's campy as all hell. It's a great satire. It's got all of the classic elements that make a great movie, and it made me realize, wow, like this movie is so superior to the remake. And I feel like all of those elements are not really in the Zack Snyder version. I still like that movie, and I probably will watch it again, but a totally different vibe. So it was interesting. And then, so I bought this at the sale. And again, this is a little bit of a different version. It's mainly the cover, but this is the Italian version. But I don't notice any difference because Dario Argento was involved pretty heavily with this movie. He co-wrote some of the screenplay. He collaborated with George Romero. Dario Argento, of course, one of the most, iconic Italian horror directors. Suspiria, Tenebrae, Inferno, so many great classics. One of the greatest horror exploitation directors ever. Probably the biggest name that's ever come out of Italy as far as horror directors. But he collaborated with George Romero on this, and I forgot about that. And he co-wrote the script and also produced it and he released the film, where they released the film together, but there's a slightly different version, I guess, that was released in Italy, and it has different artwork, and it was under a different title, Zombie, which is interesting. But it's really, on this package, it says it's a rare and European cut of the Romero classic, and I don't notice any difference. I've seen both versions. I don't notice any difference in either one. But I always forgot when I got this. I bought it because the artwork is different, and it did say it's an uncut European version. But again, I have to say I don't notice the difference between the American and the European version at all. I really don't. The packaging on this is definitely different, and it is interesting because it's under a different title. And I guess this version with this cover, this artwork, and even a different title, Zombie, was released in Europe only. So that was kind of interesting. But I watched this again last night, and I just was like, this movie is such a fucking masterpiece. Gripping suspense. It's super funny, super campy, and super gory. I love the whole scenario with the mall, with these characters being trapped in a mall. It's just such a thrill ride. One of my favorite YouTube guys, Mood616, who is he's definitely my favorite guy on YouTube. This is his all-time favorite horror movie, and I think his all-time favorite movie in general. And I see why. I'm a huge fan of the zombie genre, and it would be a close if I was to pick my favorite. It's a tough decision, but I would probably say this one. But I also really love Lucio Fulci Zombie. I think that movie is a freaking masterpiece too. But yeah, this movie is just such a damn good movie. It doesn't have any special features on here. There is a commentary track, but it's mainly comprised of different critics in the horror world. But I bought it anyway because of the different packaging, and it's cool to have. So I don't own this on Blu-ray, which I really need to do, because this movie is such an essential masterpiece masterpiece when it comes to horror, and particularly when things are related to the world of zombie movies, which is still a massive enterprise right now. But this movie is just such an amazing classic. Like I said, I mean, what else can be said about it? It came out in 1978, directed by the legendary George Romero. This movie really, I feel, acted as a blueprint for all of the zombie films that came out afterwards, especially around the suspense, the doomsday scenario, the gore. Just an incredible movie, and the coolest thing about this movie is just the level of suspense. From the minute this movie starts, it starts off in the newsroom, and you're getting all these little bits of information as the world is kind of falling apart, and it's just so gripping, and it's so realistic too in a lot of ways. And the fight scenes, the zombie kills, the SWAT team scenario in the beginning is just so intense and just so well orchestrated. Some of the best practical effects I think ever made. Yeah, I mean, Tom Savini, of course, is in this. One of the legendary figures in horror for practical effects. Yeah, I mean, Peter, or I should say Ken Foree, iconic actor. David Image, another iconic actor. Galen Ross, Scott Ranger, he's so great. Both Ken Foree and Scott Ranger are the SWAT team guys that basically kick ass throughout the whole movie. Ah, just such a damn good movie. The other awesome thing that I forgot about was this movie was all scored and filmed and composed by um, Goblin, and Goblin, of course, is the band from Italy that infamously scored all kinds of great horror exploitation movies in the 70s and 80s, particularly the most notably Suspiria. And they worked exclusively with Dario Argento on a lot of his films. And their music is just amazing and haunting and just psychedelic and insane and amazing. And they did all, and that's one of the other factors that I forgot about this film. They scored the music for all of this. So just incredible, just awesome. So I highly recommend this movie. I doubt there's anybody in the world that has not seen this movie yet, but that was a little thing I actually forgot about when I bought this copy. I forgot for some reason that Goblin scored this film. I don't know how or why I did that, but I did forget. So that was a nice kind of realization again, or awesome realization, because the music is just so badass in this movie. And I forgot too how how much Dario Argento was involved with this movie. So an amazing movie. I will definitely buy this on Blu-ray, and I know there's multiple editions of this on Blu-ray and collector's editions, 4Ks. But the quality or transfer of this on DVD is actually really really good. So I'm super psyched. I got this for like $2 or $3. So yeah, super excited. So this is Jason Dean. Got to check it out. Dawn of the Dead, 1978, George Romero, in collaboration with the legendary, or both legendary directors, but his big collaboration with Italian legend Dario Argento. Thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.